to one more show, as Dr. Mubin Syed says. So many of my followers think that me and Dr. Mubin are the same person. We are not the same person. Okay, he is Mubin Syed. I am Syed Haider. So, two different people. But yeah, I'm mirroring his or echoing the way that he starts his shows. I have my bone broth here. If you guys aren't aware, I've decided to try a carnivore reset. Last time I did this was 5 days, and it wasn't. Now I'm doing more of a lion diet, actually. So that's what most people call this. Just meat, salt, and whatever you can get, whatever else you can get from the animal. So bone broth and organ meats. Yeah, I'm feeling good. It's, a great way to eat less calories. You just don't feel like eating much. I don't think I can eat more than 1,500 calories on this diet. It's crazy. On a normal diet, I can probably eat over 3,000 calories a day. So it's a great way to lose weight. Anyway, we can talk about that if anyone's interested. But if you are interested, I am doing these live streams every morning now while I'm walking. Today was day 3. So the first 2 only streamed on Twitter. I just didn't plan it ahead properly. But starting today, this morning's live stream should have gone out to all the different channels, and you should have seen me in portrait mode on my phone while I was walking, talking about Carnivore Reset Day 3. So if you are interested in that, that's the place to probably talk about it more than here. So here, this is about your questions and your comments and stuff like that. So Lan Tran Saliti says, and I probably butchered that, I'm sorry, but it's the best I can do. What is the treatment that has worked the most for long haulers? That's easy, ivermectin. Also, and maybe time is the other one. So a lot of people just get better with time. Any link found with those who have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome? I've heard this, brought up a few times. There does seem to be a lot of people with EDS who have long hauler syndrome. Certainly more than are just in the general population. I mean, they're concentrated in long haulers, but not everyone, and it's like a small percentage of all long haulers seem to have EDS. But, maybe they have a tendency to that or something that's undiagnosed. Any links with leaky gut? I think almost all disease is linked to leaky gut. Certainly, probably all autoimmune diseases have some link. And going back to Hippocrates, it's been well known that disease begins in the gut. So if you have a diseased gut, you have a leaky gut. And what is a leaky gut? Leaky gut is basically a gut that doesn't have a proper barrier to. So your gut you're supposed to digest things and break them down into macronutrients and micronutrients. And then once you have like glucose, protein or amino acids and fat, then you absorb those into your body and you can use those macronutrients. You're not supposed to absorb like a T-bone steak, right? Without breaking it down into bits. So people with leaky gut, they don't block the absorption of partially digested food, essentially. So you'll have larger molecules and they may trigger reactions from your immune system, and then your immune system may get confused between the thing that it reacted to and your own tissues, and then it may end up attacking itself. So that's one theory. I don't know that I fully buy into that theory of autoimmune disease, but it seems to be a promising theory and approach to treating autoimmune disease by healing the gut. So if you avoid the common foods that usually trigger those cross reactions from your immune system, it seems that people get better. So there was a great study done where they took a group of people who had inflammatory bowel disease, and they put them on an autoimmune paleo diet, which eliminates all the common reactive foods. And I think 75-80% of their symptom improvement or resolution within 6 weeks is what happened. If I remember correctly, their biomarkers didn't change, but their symptoms resolved. So probably if you had extended the study longer, you may have seen biomarkers improving as well. But even symptom resolution is amazing, right? Like just from dietary changes and not from, immunosuppressant drugs. I do think to get a fuller understanding of what causes disease and what leads to health, you gotta bring the mind into the picture. So I just filmed a interview with Dr. Steve Bierman. He's criminally underfollowed on Twitter. I mean, no one knows about him. He should, and maybe soon enough, hopefully he'll be a lot more prominent. But he deserves to be much better known than he is right now. But he is about to launch the Institute of Noetic Medicine, as he calls it. So basically mind-body medicine, but he likes the term noetic, in affiliation with, is it the Gupta? No, it's not the Gupta Clinic or Foundation. Andrew Weil's concern, in Arizona, and it's also going to be linked to the University of Arizona, and also I think even their med school. So he has a fantastic insight into what causes disease and a framework for understanding how the mind can create disease, all diseases, using physical causes, right? So there are physical predisposing causes, and but even in the presence of those causes, disease manifests at a certain time in somebody's life. And so his key insight was to ask people, why now? Why did it happen now, right? Why didn't it happen yesterday? Why didn't it happen 2 weeks ago? Why didn't it happen 2 years ago? So why didn't it happen 3 weeks from now, right? So why was the heart attack today? Any idea? And so the way he asks it helps people to get to the bottom of that, even though they don't initially take him seriously on it, right? They think he's joking. So anyway, he helps people to resolve cancers, autoimmune disease, all kinds of things with mind-body medicine. And he's a hypnotist and an NLP practitioner, but he's very, very good at what he does. Not everyone is, right? So that's the problem. You can't just go find somebody who knows NLP and expect, amazing results from everyone who's been trained. A certificate on the wall is just that. It doesn't mean much. It's what you do with the training that counts. And sometimes, what you bring to the table beforehand. So some people are probably better prepared than others to benefit from that kind of training. So March 2020, here and now, I developed, it's definitely not March 2020. Maybe this question's from March 2020, I don't know. Developed autoimmune POTS and breast cancer post-March 2020. Okay. This is what Lan says. So I think most people probably have some element of autoimmunity with long haul. And many people have POTS. That's very common. And breast cancer, cancers can certainly occur as well. To a certain degree, it just speeds up what was about to happen to you anyway, pulls it from the future into the present. That's one way of looking at it. Bierman's, approach to it would maybe be different than that. But some people think it, speeds up the aging process or increases inflammation and then makes those, from his perspective, the causative things stronger causes, right? And then there's two approaches to healing, even from the perspective of mind-body medicine. It's not all mind, right? In some cases it can be purely psychosomatic where there's nothing physical, right? It's just the creation of the mind. But most people have some physical causes that are predispose them to a certain condition, and then their subconscious kind of pushes them over the edge and they develop that condition. But those predisposing causes can become very, very powerful as well and push you into that disease, perhaps without much of a mind component to it. So I'm open to different interpretations. So you can address this from the standpoint of mind, and you can also address disease and health and illness from the perspective of physical causes and in the physical realm. And if you change lifestyle and diet and get rid of toxins and take the proper nutrients and all of that, then health, the physical causes can disappear. In many cases, the disease goes away, and the mind has to find some other way of solving your problems for you. Maybe by creating a different disease with the recipe that's still present inside of you, the ingredients that you still have left. It comes up with some other illness to help you get out of the job you hate, or out of the relationship you can't stand, or away from the situation that you want to get rid of. So those are different reasons why people may manifest disease that people don't often consider. Kevin Ryan says, I have had 2 Pfizer shots. Last one was June 2021. I seem to be fine. I do blood work twice a year. It's clean, and I have a full cardiac workup a year ago, including a cardiac CT. It was clear. What else should I do to check my health? Microclot test, Gallery test for cancer. I've never had COVID, and I actually believe the vaccine prevented me from getting the beta Delta version in July 2020. I'm not pro-vax, but this is my observation. Yeah, so, for whatever reason you didn't get COVID, and some people think maybe the vaccine worked. Other people think that it absolutely didn't work, and it couldn't have worked. So I think the sign that somebody, you need to have some, what is the word? Humility, right? Intellectual humility, because it's very easy to fool us with bad information, bad data. And this is one of the reasons I spoke with Matthew Crawford this morning, and that interview should be out in a week or two, hopefully. But it's a pretty long one. And one of the things I really admire about him is that he's very, intellectually humble, and it's not like, okay, this is the reality, this is the way it is, and I'm certain of it, right? Whereas most of the people who end up in the media, and maybe this is just our own failing as a species, as humans, we tend to gravitate towards people who have certainty. This is another topic that Steve Bierman touches on, that when we are scared, frightened, very, very needy, very, very sick, for example, helpless, we look for the one who's least uncertain, okay? That's his way of putting it. And we talk about why he doesn't say most certain. So he says least uncertain, not most certain. But the person who has the least uncertainty in our environment, we latch onto them, and we actually give them a lot of authority over us. And they even have, the ability to give us hypnotic suggestions, essentially, that can either create nocebo effects or placebo effects. And oftentimes it's, nocebo by default just because people aren't careful what they say. And sometimes it may be nocebo by intention, right? So it's possible that different intelligence agencies wanted to scare people and wanted to create illness. So that's one of the reasons that long COVID may be a lot more prominent now, or these long haul kind of syndromes, AKA, post-infectious inflammatory syndromes, are more prevalent or more prominent, or maybe they're just not more prevalent, but we're just hearing more about them because people are more aware of them, or the media is talking about them more. So yeah, what was my point? The authority, and investing people with authority, and I forget where I started, but yeah, when we're helpless, we tend to invest people with authority over us. So again, I don't remember where I started with that, but I was talking about the vaccine, I guess, and whether or not it works, and long haul. Anyway, we'll go back to the question, right? When in doubt, go back to the question. Yeah, so there's a lot of things. I mean, it's like, how far do you want to go? How certain do you want to be? There is no certainty. Yeah, I was talking about Matthew Crawford and how he, I admired that. So I'm unsure, right? I can't say for, oh yeah, I remember where I got off on this tangent was, did the vaccine help? Did it not help? Right? So, some people go on to alternative media or even mainstream media now. Maybe not mainstream, but Ladapo, the Surgeon General in Florida, I think his name is, saying that, Joseph Ladapo, maybe, saying that we should stop the vaccines because of the risk of XYZ. So highly recommend listening to these interviews. They're fantastic, both Bierman's and Matthew Crawford's. But my point was that I don't have a lot of certainty in around what's going on, what's happening to us. What I am certain of is that I can help people get better, one way or the other. I'm going to commit myself to making you better, and we'll find a way to get you better. Even if we can't figure out what it was that caused it. Was it a virus? Was it, chemical weapons? Was it 5G? I don't really believe that 5G is causing any of the pandemic. I do think that it can be harmful for human health, but I don't think it's like literally the cause of the pandemic. So, or the shots, and so I can't tell you, okay, the shots didn't work at all. I don't think they did, based on my understanding of reality and science, and my assumptions that the data I've been given are correct, that, what they say was in the shots was actually in them and something else wasn't in them, and that they were all that way. So I don't think that they were helpful. I don't think vaccines in general are helpful. I think I subscribe to the perspective, one of the perspectives Chris Masterjohn espouses is that vaccinations seem to make it less likely for you to test positive for a disease, but not less likely for you to get sick. And not everyone got Delta, right? A lot of people got it, a lot of people didn't. Maybe if you were around a lot of people who were sick and you didn't get sick, maybe you can say for some reason you didn't get it, but it's hard to say that it was because of the shot. For so many different reasons, you may have not gotten it. Maybe you had a subclinical infection. Maybe you didn't get an infection at all. Maybe your immune system was okay at that time. Maybe you had no noetic reasons to get sick. Regardless, yeah, so all of the above and more you could do to see whether you were affected. You may have gotten empty shots, right? Or they may have been good batches, or duds, or just saline solutions that you got injected with, or maybe Mark Girardeau is correct, and his bolus theory of vaccine injury is on target, and that would suggest that if you didn't get a big bolus dose into your vasculature, then you wouldn't have been harmed. And so not everyone got hurt by it, right? And I don't think that everyone who got it is going to die. I think that if it appears as though, Gert Van den Bosch's predictions are correct, then it's probably because they're killing us in some other way, right? So I think it's going to be like, maybe it'll be like, people pointing to like, oh, look, Gert Van den Bosch was correct. Finally, after 3 years, we're all admitting it. That's why people are dying, and now we got to do something about it, and blah, blah, blah. It's just, as Matthew Crawford says, another level of the psyop, probably. So I don't think that if you got the shot, you're going to die, right? I think that some people certainly may have gotten very sick from it, and you should take some precautions and check if you can, or just, optimize your health, lose all the weight, get healthy, get strong, get out in the sun, get into a natural environment. Your natural immune system can probably deal with almost anything, if not anything, short of like a bullet to the head, right? Or a bullet somewhere else sensitive. So short of like a terrible accident, your immune system and your mind can, and your choices can correct health problems. So microclot test, I think, is my number one. We have a whole slew of tests that we can do. So the spike, there's a spike, what is it? Panel that we have. I forget now what it's called. Spike toxicity panel or something. So there's that, and that includes things like a spike antibody level to see how your immune system's reacting to it. And there's a lot of things that we could order in that if you want them. So that includes the Gallery test for cancer. It includes, which is a blood draw that'll if you drop in a vial of blood, it can test for 50 different cancers, a genetic marker that's common to 50 different cancers. So it can find them very, very early. You can also do immune system testing. So the same testing you do for AIDS, you can apply it here and do a lymphocyte subset panel, or you can do an advanced version of that from Cyrix Labs that checks even more parts of your immune system and even more immune cells to see whether they're, elevated in numbers or depressed in numbers, and you can come up with various kind of fingerprints of like, could this predispose you to cancer? Could it predispose you to autoimmune disease? Could it predispose you XYZ? You have a lot of kind of fingerprints of different diseases that can be found within the Cyrix lymphocyte panel. And then there's Sabine Hazan's microbiome test. We can see whether your microbiome has, the appearance of having been affected by spike protein. We can check the InCell DX panel in part of that comprehensive spike panel of tests. We can check and then we do CBC, CMP, all the usual tests, and look for all the usual markers of inflammation as well, like ESR, CRP, I think are in there as well. Markers of heart injury like troponin. We can add a chest X-ray EKG, echocardiogram in there. You've done a cardiac CT, so that's probably good enough. So there's a lot of things that can be done. And then you can also, the other thing that people don't often think of is that you may say the shot was affecting you in a certain negative way, but you can't see any indication of it. It could be that your body and your resources are so strong that you're actually putting up with an assault on your system. But in order to do that, you're using up resources as though somebody is attacking your country, and you have to expend a lot of, blood and treasure. You have to expend a lot of resources to fight them off, right? Like the Russians are expending a lot of resources to attack Ukraine. Ukraine's expending a lot of resources to fight them off, right? So as you expend those resources, what are those resources? They include micronutrients, they include vitamins, minerals. So, we have these assaults on our health every year, every few years, as we get older. Stress is an assault on your health, and these things burn through your resources. They use up your micronutrients. So micronutrient testing is also really important because that'll show you that, hey, I've gotten really low in something. It doesn't tell you why you got really low in it, but it can help you avert disaster, because that particular micronutrient continues to drop. So there's micronutrient testing. There's a number of advanced tests that we can do, some advanced panels from Florian Schilling in Germany, looking at different markers of neuroinflammation and leaky gut and stuff like that. So there's, you can do a full panel of quite comprehensive tests looking for spike protein disease. I can say that, and I've said this a lot before, people, I'm just kind of repeating myself, but that's a lot of the Q&As are repetitive. And it's good because it helps us learn, and it helps us sometimes get to things from a different angle. And sometimes if you hear things enough, something will click in your head and you'll understand it better, or you'll understand it for the first time in some cases. So sometimes I go so far off track that I lose the whole point. Like now. I was going to repeat myself about something. I don't remember anymore what that was. Whew. Yeah, so this is one of those things. It's like, I don't feel brain foggy, but, sometimes I'm losing the thread of conversation. So this is one of the things I'm hoping to fix with the carnivore diet. It's probably just because I'm overweight again. I gained weight again after losing it. And, so that affects you in a lot of ways. It causes inflammation. It also can make you snore and not, breathe oxygen properly while you're sleeping. And so there's poor recovery. Sometimes if I talk enough, I'll get back to the point that I lost. So I was talking about, and people are probably writing it down in the chat right now, but I'm not looking at it. Sorry if you're trying to help me out. I'm not aware of what you're writing. So I was talking about Florian Schilling, and he's got some advanced tests available for all kinds of inflammation. Leaky gut was one of them. There's the brain inflammation tests. There's a bunch of autoantibody tests that he has in his panel, which we can order for people. So there's a lot of tests that we can do, and that's kind of the best that we can do right now. I think that probably, I think this was one of the things that I wanted to say was that almost everyone that I have treated, this is what I wanted to say, I got it. Actually, not almost everyone that has come to me with long COVID or vaccine injury has had elevated microclots, so unusually elevated microclots. It can get a little bit harder to interpret if you're elderly or you have serious chronic disease already, which could predispose to some microclots, but usually not the degrees of elevation that we see, right? So you might have, some microclots, but not as many as you're seeing with long haul and vaccine injuries. So every single person so far who's had long haul or a vaccine injury has had positive and elevated microclots. So that doesn't mean that everyone who has vaccine injury or long COVID that's, not manifesting itself would also have microclots, but I can make that leap, right? That probably it's more probable that if you don't have microclots, it's far less likely that you have a spike protein illness or a vascular injury that happened from the shot or from COVID. This gets back to the bolus theory of Marc Girardot. His theory, essentially is that the vaccine injuries are due to a bolus of the vaccine entering your vascular system. And you could draw a connection between this and how long COVID might develop. So in a COVID infection, 10, 15, maybe 20, up to 20% of the time, I think it's between 10 and 20, so something like 14, 15% of the time, the virus will enter your vascular system. And then once it enters your vascular system, it's very similar to a lipid nanoparticle in your vascular system in that it will transfect. What that means is it binds to the lining cells of the vascular system, infects them, or the lipid nanoparticle, takes over their cellular machinery to create spike protein. So in one case with the virus, it's taking over that cell to create viruses, and then it bursts open and spews forth viruses into your bloodstream and everywhere else. And in the case of lipid nanoparticle, it takes over your cellular machinery, creates the spike protein, sticks it to the surface of the wall of the lining cell of the blood vessel, and then the immune system sees it and it recognizes that it's foreign, antigens, and it has to destroy that cell, and then it learns about the spike protein, and the immune cells that react to the spike protein replicate. But in both cases, vaccine injury and perhaps also in long COVID, you're having vascular damage happening. So this is one theory of why long COVID and vaccine injury develop. And this theory of vaccine injury can apply to other vaccines too. Any vaccine that it could be an inactivated virus, it doesn't matter, right? It's transfecting the cells, creating virus, exploding the lining wall, blood vessel lining. So if a large amount of virus hits a certain area of blood vessel, like in your aorta, and you get a concentrated dose of virus in that one area, or vaccine lipid nanoparticles in that one small area, and a bunch of cells in 1 square centimeter all die off, you're going to have a big bleed. You're going to die, right? You're going to have, but if the smaller area gets affected, you'll just have clotting. Your body will clot off, and then there will be some propagation of the clot, and maybe develop microclots. So vascular injury is one of the theories, and depending on where that vascular injury happens, you can harm the function of an organ or multiple organs. You can cause leaky gut, etc. So, yeah, the microclot test may be picking up microclots due to that kind of vascular injury. They are atypical amyloid fibrin microclots with spike protein inside of them. So that spike protein is present at the site of vascular injury, so it would make sense that it would be incorporated in the initial clots. But why would it be in all the clots, right? That's an interesting question. Why don't these clots propagate and become large clots? I don't know. Maybe there's ongoing vascular inflammation contributing to the creation of those microclots. Regardless, my whole point here was that the microclot test seems to be, to my mind right now, the best single test you could do to see whether you have a vaccine injury or spike protein. All right. All right. Who is the guy in Arizona and the connection to the University of Arizona? So I think I answered that question, but if you didn't hear it or if you didn't catch it, that was Andrew Weil, W-E-I-L, Andrew Weil's Center for Alternative Medicine or something. It's a relatively large organization that's affiliated with the University of Arizona. Steve Bierman is going to open an Institute of Noetic Sciences or Noetic Medicine, one of the two, in affiliation with Andrew Weil's Institute of Alternative Medicine, and also in affiliation with the University of Arizona. And that Institute of Noetic Medicine is going to train physicians and hopefully med students in the art, as he calls it, the exquisite art of caregiving, and how to communicate with patients so that you can actually create placebo effects in them and avoid creating nocebo effects, as most physicians do. Once you learn, what to look out for, you realize that most caregivers are in a way, cursing their patients and creating self-fulfilling negative prophecies because of that authority that they have that's given to them by the patient, because they are the one least uncertain, right? So Steve Bierman's one of his main ideas is that just like when we were helpless and uncertain as children, and we looked for the person in our environment who was least uncertain about us and about our health and our well-being and everything, that was usually a parent. When we become sick, we go back into that state, right? So the pandemic put a lot of people into that state, and just severe illness puts a lot of people into that kind of vulnerable state where they are looking for the person who is least uncertain and who can help them, right? So it might be a neurosurgeon, for example, right? That you're like, okay, this is the person, the one person that I know, out of all the doctors that I know, this person knows the most about my neurological condition, right? So you invest them with authority in that area at least, right? And then they can, if they say the wrong thing, put it the wrong way, since you're open to their hypnotic suggestion, because of the authority that you've invested in them, they can either create a nocebo or a placebo effect. Chris says, what works the best to help control reactive Epstein-Barr virus? So I think the thing that works best for everything is mind-body medicine, or as Steve Bierman would call it, noetic medicine, where you get to the bottom of why that Epstein-Barr virus has been reactivated. Do you have some sort of hidden psychological reason? I need to learn more about it, right? So that I can rattle off the different reasons that are common for people. But one of the ones that I remember is a baleful wish, as Bierman calls it. So like a bad wish, right? So, for example, somebody is stuck in a horrible job and they can't see any way out, and they feel like, and they make this wish that I wish I could get out of this situation no matter what. That's the important negative part of the wish, right? The no matter what part. And so your subconscious looks at that and it's like, well, I can give you cancer and that'll get you out of it, right? You'll have to go on disability and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? But at least you'll be out of the job, since you said no matter what, yeah, wave my magic wand, let's go with the breast cancer that you're predisposed to. So it sounds ridiculous, but I would, look at it with an open mind and learn more about it. I do find it quite convincing. I mean, he mentions that when he was learning and when he was in his family practice residency, there was research that had shown that 90 to 95% of the illnesses that people come into family practice resident, office for, or just any medical office for, have some, psychological component that is involved in their manifestation. So, so there's a lot of science behind this. You just have to have an open mind and be willing to learn about it, so that it, and you may change the way that you look at reality. But this is missing from our medical science, right? The connection of the subconscious to our health is missing, and we don't think about it. We don't consider it at all, and we don't give it any importance or use it, right, as we should. So we can use it to improve our health. And, it's interesting, Matthew Crawford tweeted this out, that the Rockefellers funded both mainstream medicine and alternative medicine through the Esalen Institute, I think it was. But he said that if you can trace the money back from a lot of different alternative medicine organizations to the Rockefellers, oftentimes through the Esalen Institute to other organizations. And, there's a few reasons to do that, right? You want to keep them separate, maybe avoid like people seeing things from a holistic perspective. You want to maybe turn them, the alternative quackpots into like fringe, a fringe of medicine that's everyone looks down upon or whatever, right? But, you infiltrate them and maybe you de-emphasize some of the things that come from them that are the most effective, right? Like perhaps IV vitamin C, et cetera. All these treatments that people have found to be effective, perhaps, and have been covered up or suppressed. But another reason is to create like a dualism where it's like either or, when the reality is something else. It's like there's actually a third option, right? There's something else that you're not even looking at. Maybe that's noetic medicine. In the alternative health movement, they still focus a lot on a materialistic approach and far less on an approach of, as Bierman calls it, noetic medicine, which is, quite poetic. And, sometimes the perfect what you want to say has for hijacked by somebody else, so you can't use it anymore. But and you have to come up with a new term. So anyway, we're 35 minutes into the live stream. Let's switch over to the pro.longcovidreset.com website. Follow us there for the rest of this, and we'll wrap up at least an hour. Sometimes we go over, but check out the rest of the live stream at pro.longcovidreset.com. And we have made some changes over there, so it should be easier to find where the live stream is showing up. I think at the top, probably it says live stream. There's a link at the very top. Just click that. You should be able to watch it. So I'll be back in a minute and on that other website. All right. See you there. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the pro.longcovidreset.com website. Thank you for supporting us here. We highly, highly appreciate all the support that you give us. First of all, just by being a member and following, of our own site, our own streaming platform, where we can say whatever we want, hopefully, without fear of reprisals, fear of being banned or limited in our reach. And also all of you who are financially supporting the website and the work that we're doing here, thank you very much, because it's more a labor of love. I'm trying to learn more so I can help patients, and I'm trying to spread the word. And if people hear something that, somebody else needs to hear, they can forward this to that person. But yeah, the website is, I don't think it's even self-sustaining at this point, right? This content kind of creation that we do, it doesn't, it brings us some patients, but I don't think that's like a major source of revenue. It's certainly not a major source of revenue for us. Even the patients that come in, trickle in through my content creation, don't pay for the amount of time that we spend on content creation. And when we do advertise the site, we used to advertise it heavily on Facebook, and we're working our way back up to that. When we advertise the summits, for example, all the money that we spend on advertising, comes from, the VIP subscriptions to the summit and stuff like that. And it just all gets